All right. Hey, everybody. I'm so excited you're here. I'm Ellen Lewis, and I have with me the fabulous
I'm
Georgia
Georgia
Farrell.
Farrell.
Go ahead.
Hi everyone. Welcome to Ellen's wonderful knit along.
Yay. Thank you so much for agreeing to appear on our kickoff. I think this is going to
Oh,
be so much fun.
yeah, it's my pleasure.
So I want to real quick welcome the folks that are here.
Uh-huh.
So we have Sandy, and we have Wendy, and let's see, Kimberly. Hey, Kimberly. Hey, Tammy. Hey, Jal. Hey, Glenn. Yes. So good. This is going to be so much fun. And I think we'll have more and more people join kind of as we go. Hi, Colleen. Hey, Polly. So nice to see you. So this is for the agave sweater, and it's such a cute design.
Oh, thank you.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your inspiration for it?
Yeah, so it's part of a collection that I designed for Rowan, all in the Tweed Haze. And when they asked me to design the collection, it was a relatively new yarn. It had only been out the season before, and it's a very textural yarn. It's really lightweight. It's got the tweedy flex, but it's got the fuzziness. So it's a bit like Kid Silk Haze and Felted Tweed come together and then like bulked up, basically, imagine. And when you knit with the yarn, it was interesting for me because I like to design a lot of textured patterns, and obviously the yarn has so much texture itself. You kind of, you don't want to do too much with it, really. You want to keep things really simple and just show off the texture of the yarn. So this was one of the designs where that was kind of like my starting point. And I often like to play with stripes. And I thought, how can I do something slightly different with a stripe? And I wanted to create a garment that was going to be super simple to knit as well. And this kind of shape, I've worked on similar kind of designs before using this kind of, the idea it's slightly like a kimono or slightly like a poncho as well. It's very boxy, and then it's open at the side, so it's got a lot of movement. And it's a really, really fun garment that you can, put your own colours on. I wanted that kind of idea, that people could have some fun with. And it can be worn in like different ways. I've seen so many different people wear like the sample size, try it on, and, you can wear it with different amounts of ease and all sorts of things. So it's just a really, really fun, easy to knit garment. And that was kind of my aim when I was designing it.
Yeah, it's such a cute sweater. I think what really sold it here was we had a trunk show, and
Mm-hmm.
that was one of the garments in it, and everybody who put it on looked great.
Exactly. Yeah, it's one of those kind of magical garments, isn't it?
Absolutely, 100%. People enjoyed it, and it wasn't one of those that people look at and think, oh, I want to knit that. But when they put it on, I mean, and I think you've talked about this before about the wearer bringing life to the garment.
Yeah. Oh, it's so important, especially with a shape like that when you see it flat, because it's got the no neck gap. So it looks really sort of like angular and pointy at the top, and you think, how's that going to work when you put it on? It's not till you put it on that you actually see how it works. And for me, it's the kind of like the movement of it as well. So it kind of, I love the way it sort of swings, and you've got the wide sleeve, and it's such a great layering piece as well. So you can really like imagine wearing it over different things in your wardrobe. And
Yeah, you can dress it up, you can dress it
Mm.
down, and I love the playing with the colors. We've put a bunch of colorways together.
Yeah, that's so exciting. I really love seeing what colours people want to put together. And I think you've picked some great options, definitely.
Oh, thank you. So I wanted to talk a little bit to everybody here who's maybe getting started with it on the swatching. What was
Yeah.
your experience swatching the Tweed Haze? It has a set gauge that the ball band recommends.
Uh-huh.
How was that for you? I mean, it looks like it would be bulkier than it kind of is.
Yeah, I think it's very airy, right? It's full of, it catches the air a lot, so it looks, like you say, it looks bulkier than it is. I didn't have any problems with the gauge, and I think with something like garter stitch, there's always a bit more to play with in terms of gauge, right? I don't know.
Mhm.
it kind of can take slightly looser gauges and slightly tighter gauges as well. So it's a little bit less precious about that, I think, with something worked in garter stitch.
Yeah. So I want to share my screen and show the different. This is my actual garment. So I did a couple swatches. So this was the swatch that I did in that lovely, is this sunset
Oh, the
color?
orange.
Or is
Beautiful.
that, yeah, I can't remember the name, whether this is sunset or sunrise or whatnot.
I'm afraid I can't either. But
But so this I did on a 10, and then it was a slightly over gauge. And then I did
right,
this other one on a 9.
brought it
And
down. Yeah.
it was perfect. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you had to go down a
Down.
needle?
I
Oh, right.
did.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And I'm not typically a loose knitter, but I just
Right.
want to caution everybody to actually do the gauge swatch.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Right?
Oh, for sure. Well, it's a new kind of, especially for Rowan, it's a new yarn, isn't it? It's a different kind of construction in a way. So
Mhm.
if you've never knitted with this kind of, it's kind of like a blown, really quite airy, and it's hairy and everything. It's definitely worth doing your tension and seeing whether you need to adjust your needles. Yeah.
Right. And I think also making sure that you get the needle side, the needle tip that works for you.
Yes.
Some people prefer like a slightly ball tip. Some people need a really pointy tip.
Yeah.
I knit this on the Rowan circular needles,
Yeah.
which were perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's interesting as well because it's a little bit of a sticky yarn, right? So depending on what needles you're used to using, it might be worth having a play and seeing if you've got a few different needle types, because it is a bit more of a sticky yarn, I would say. And so I used metal needles when I was swatching for it,
Mhm.
and I liked
Oh,
that.
yeah, good, good. So I love the color sequence that you've got going on here.
Oh, cool.
I think it's really, you know, it looks it has such great movement. So, here's mine that I started a little bit ago, but
Oh, that's
you can see in
exciting.
this swatch, it's really easy to learn. So you have 6 rows of garter in the one color, or 6 rows, 3 garter ridges, 1
Yeah.
garter ridges in the contrast, and then 3 in the main, and then you swap it out and 3 in the contrast,
Yeah.
1. Yeah.
So it's like a really broad stripe that's been broken up with these narrow stripes within them. That's kind of how I see it.
Yes.
So like broad bands of each color and then a narrow stripe of the contrast in between, and then we flip back and forth. So I
Right.
like to do something like that. It's like, how can you take a normal stripe and do something slightly different with it?
Mhm.
Just by playing with the weights of the colors and the sequence and the sort of balance and everything. And there's like endless things you could do. Like I think I could swatch different stripe ideas like for eternity and never run out of ideas.
I know that you are so inspired by architecture. Was there a particular piece of architecture that inspired this, or was it just generally, a
Yeah,
stripe
not
pattern
this
and stuff?
one. I was actually doing some collaging, and it's something I do quite a lot when I'm designing. I kind of started doing it when I designed Abstract, a collection I did a couple of seasons ago. And I think it's a really great design tool, like cutting up different color, especially for something like a stripe. So you can then move things around, layer them on top of each other, and that's kind of how I came up with this design. I was just cutting paper and different stripes and weights and playing around with them until I found a sequence that I liked, and then we moved on to swatching it.
Mhm. So talk a little bit about that color weight, so that, when people are in the process of kind of changing out colors for this,
Mm.
what you mean exactly by color weight.
Yeah, I mean, well, for this design, it's quite nice because even though you've got the broad stripes and the thin stripes, because it flips and reverses every other time, you've actually got 50% of one color and 50% of another color. But it's really interesting to see how sometimes the color can almost look a bit different when it's in the broad stripe than when it's in the thin stripe. And so it's that the weight of the colors together, and so overall in the garment it will balance itself out. So actually I think it should be relatively easy to swap colors in and out of. I can almost think that you can't really go wrong for that reason. But it is definitely interesting to see like how when you've got like that little bit of the orange, it somehow really pops, I think, and even more than when you've got the big amount of it, which is really interesting. But I talk like when I'm designing and doing these talks about color balance, and the weight of color is really important when you're looking at a design and you're recoloring it. So imagine this one, we've got like 50-50, right? So that's quite easy, but quite often you'll have two colors in a design and you'll pick up two balls of yarn off the shelf and go, oh, do these colors look nice together? But actually in the garment, there's like 80% one color and only 20% the other. And you almost need to get like 8 balls of one and 2 balls of the other and then decide whether you like it, because I think it really makes a difference.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference, the proportion of the colors against one another. Some colors your eye picks up quite readily, like a gold. You don't need a lot of yellow in the garment to make a statement to say, here's some yellow or a little bit of that acid green.
I love that kind of color. That's
Do
amazing.
you?
Yeah.
It's
definitely.
so pretty. So would that be in your palette if you designed your own line of yarn?
Oh, 100%. Yes. They're kind of, I like ambiguous colors as well, so like, is it green, is it yellow? It's that kind of like right in the middle where it could be sometimes yellow depending on what you wear it with, and sometimes it looks more green. I love that in a color. I think that's always really fun to design with.
Yeah, like a teal or an aqua.
Right? Yeah, it's slightly green, slightly blue. Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay, so people are probably excited about casting on. Do you have a favorite cast on?
So I tend to use the cable cast on. So I cast on with 2 needles. And generally that's my favorite cast on. And I think it's just because it's how I learned to cast on. That's how my nan taught me to cast on, but also it's super neat. I have to say it gives a really, really neat edge. But it's not stretchy. So if I need a stretchy cast on, then I would definitely choose something different for that situation. But generally, cable cast on's my favorite. What about you, Ellen?
So I'm a long tail girl, or a German twisted girl. I think the cable cast on is very nice and neat.
Yeah.
But I feel like I have more flexibility to make my cast on very elastic if it needs to be with a long tail cast on.
So true. I learned like a couple of years ago, I started doing a cable cast on for rib if you're doing 1 by 1 rib, and it's really great. It makes a really nice stretchy edge, but it only works if it's 1 by 1 rib. If it's any other kind of rib, then it's out. But it's a nice option.
Is that when you do the knit and then the purlwise cable cast on?
Yeah, exactly.
And you can't do that with 2/2 rib?
For some reason, apparently not. You have to cast on 1 by 1 and then go in and like swap them round. And that's really, at that point, I'm definitely moving to long tail, because that's too, just
which
too
you can also do knitwise and purlwise.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if you want to. So basically, I think what I'm hearing you say is that any cast on you want to do is fine for this.
Yes.
I'm really not a fan of the knitted cast on. I think for this it might look a little sloppy, but if the cable cast on is just a really tiny adjustment to the knitted cast on.
Exactly. It's so close to being the same thing, and the result is so much better. So
Right. Yeah, 100%. So if you tell me in the comments if you are somebody who does a knitted cast on, and whether you would like to chat about how to make a cable cast on instead of a knitted cast on, and we can circle back around and do that. But yeah, so while we're here, just go ahead and start casting on. If you've done your swatch, so cast on for your swatch. If you haven't done your swatch, you have to do your swatch. I'm the worst. I make everybody do a swatch, even if they think they have already worked with this yarn or whatever. I think part of what's really important is doing the swatch, because it helps your mind get wrapped around that color pattern, so that you learn it.
That's great.
And you can see how you like that cast on. If you feel like you cast on or practice.
Practice your cast on. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it's just really important because as much as we don't think it does, our tension changes all the time. So you might have knitted with that yarn before, but it might have been 2 years ago. And I don't know, you had a more stressful job then or something, and everything goes into affecting your tension. So it's always worth doing a swatch. And I bet you people thank you for it afterwards. It might force them into it. Thank you for it later.
Sometimes they do. Let's see. All right. Donna says, I use the knitted cast on, but would still like to learn the cable cast on. Jal says, I did the crochet cast on for this project.
Nice.
All right. Kimberly said she would like to learn the cable cast on.
Right.
Wendy, a long tail girl. All right. Yep. Okay. So, all right. Well, let's kind of do that. I'm happy to show you how to do a cable cast on. Yeah, I can do a demo right here, right now, right on my Daily Box. So, all right, add to stream, make me here. Whoops. Okay, so if you have stitches on your needle and you're going to cast on, we'll just start from scratch. We'll pretend that we don't have any stitches on the needle at all. How about that? Yeah. So with the cable cast on, you're going to start with a slip knot. And you're going to put that on your needle, on your left needle. And you're still going to use your 2 needles like Georgia said. And for the first, let's tighten that up a little bit. For your first stitch, you're going to go into the stitch that's on your needle. Can you see that? There we go. Into the stitch that's on your needle and make a stitch. But rather than pulling that stitch off, you're going to turn and you're going to place that stitch on your left needle. Okay? And do you see how I kind of twist that so it's seated properly? The right leg is over the front. And I think this is mirroring I don't know if this is mirroring it for you, but
no,
so
I think it's good.
Is it showing it okay? Okay, yeah, so for the next stitch, can you see this? Put this against the back. That might be easier. Okay, so for the next one, rather than going into the stitch, we're going to go between the stitches.
Yeah, that's the important bit, isn't it? Going between.
Right. Go between the stitches. So do you see how my needle is coming between the 2 stitches that are on the needle? So you go between, wrap the yarn around as if you're making a knit stitch, and bring it right through. And again, put it on your needle. And right here, what I like to do before I tighten the stitch is put my needle back in between. Yeah. That keeps you from having to fight with the stitch.
Yeah. You have to force your way in.
Is that how you do it too, Georgia?
Yeah, absolutely. It looks okay. It's great.
So we just put it on the needle and then slip your needle back in between so that you're ready for the next one. And it's really nice to know how to do this particular cast on because this is what you're going to be doing, I think, when you cast on for the sleeves.
Exactly. Yes? Yeah. It's a really great cast on to add stitches when you're in, you know, mid knitting, you know, at the end of a row.
Yeah.
The beginning of a row, I should say.
Absolutely. Let's see. Swatched and tried to change my number to 3 stitches per inch in size 8 needles using backward E cast on.
Ooh.
All right. So you're re-gauging it? Okay. All right. What's Denise got? Right. This is exactly what Georgia was saying.
You just don't know. You really don't. Tension is one of those mysteries, I think. It can be affected
like the weather.
Yeah.
All right. So when reading a pattern, I see will we be casting on a large number of stitches for the sleeves. Which cast on method is preferred? So for this one, Georgia?
I would use cable cast on because it's really great to add stitches at the beginning of a row, which is what you'll do to cast on to add your sleeve, because you just go in between the first stitch and the next stitch. You just go in between again, pop a new one on, and just keep going like that, and then you're ready to knit back. So it's, you know, I think it's the best to use at that point for sure.
Yeah. I also think that here's a little tip for you is go ahead and put a stitch marker on your needle before you begin casting on for your sleeves. Because once you get that needle in there and you start casting on, and you're casting on quite a few for the sleeves, you don't want to have to go back and count all the stitches. You want to know where you began.
That's great advice, definitely. Yeah, because your stitches that you've cast on will sort of merge into the stitches you already had, and that's great advice. And I think the only thing to say is if you're not used to doing cable cast on, just make sure you don't do it too tightly, because like we said before, it's not the stretchiest cast on ever, but it's not around a neck, it's or anywhere it needs to. But if you cast on really tightly, then you might find it gathers. So, practice it on your swatch and just make sure you're happy with the cast on coming out, the right width for the piece, and you'll be fine.
And you probably noticed, gang, that when I was casting on, the yarn is a little hairy, and you want to make sure that you give yourself enough room. Mm-hmm. So, and that's what George is saying about being nice and loose. You give yourself enough room to put that needle in, and catching little bits of this and that. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
I do love the hairy yarn. I think the texture is so fabulous.
Oh, it's beautiful, isn't it? And it allows it to be lightweight but really warm and cozy, and
yeah.
So it's a beautiful yarn, yeah.
All right, what does Sandy have to say? Never use. Good. Okay, well that's great, Sandy. I'm glad that you are going to try it, and I think you'll love. It's like everything in knitting. It's nice to have an additional skill in your tool belt.
Yeah, exactly. Because there'll be times where it's the perfect cast on, and I also think it's really good if you're doing anything sort of intarsia wise, where you've got to cast on in separate blocks of colour. I think it works really well for that, because, if you were doing long tail, you'd have to join in a new long tail, and then your pieces kind of feel very separate from each other. Whereas where you're doing cable, you're going in between the stitches, you're kind of latching that new colour onto the old piece. And so that it's a good cast on for that as well.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yes, because next month we're doing the Veronique.
Oh, yeah.
And that's kind of an easy way to start with intarsia.
Oh, absolutely. And it's such a fun design. I really love it.
Are you going to knit one?
I'm really tempted to, because that's totally my style, like very geometric and blocks of color, and the shape's really lovely.
I think picking for us in the shop, picking the colors has been the most fun, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm doing mine in black, white, pink, and gray.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that. So totally monochrome and then just a pop.
Right, exactly.
Love that.
So let's see. Yes. Yeah. Have you already done this, Denise? Are you already ahead of us? My goodness. Let's see. Look at you.
That's a good question. Why not state to use the cable cast on in the instructions? I think because it's not strictly necessary. I think we only specify cast-ons when they are completely necessary, because I know that a lot of people are very attached to cast-on methods that they like. And, it's not that this is the only one that will work in this situation. It's just kind of personal preference, really.
Yeah, there are designers who will specify that you have to do a particular cast on for a particular purpose. And I think when it's important that you do, they might specify that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay, I think I have specified cast-ons in some other patterns with Rowan before, but rarely do we do that unless it's important for the finish.
The next thing I kind of wanted to talk about is carrying the yarn up the side. So that's something I did in my swatch, and I'm doing it in my garment. I know that it's not seamed, but I think it looks just fine. Did you carry yours up?
When I swatched, I didn't, but I was only knitting a swatch, so when I designed it, I didn't, and I tend not to, because I just think when it's for the design swatch and the specification and everything, I try to do it exactly. Anything that might affect the tension or even slightly or anything like that. It's better to just not do. So I didn't then, but the sample was knitted that way and it looked great. So I think it makes a lot of sense. And if you really didn't want to do it, I mean, I would definitely carry it up across those 2 rows for sure, because you will never see that, you know, the
Right.
thin stripe. So you could always do a bit of both. Either works, really.
How many of you in the audience think that you would or would not? You've already thought about it. You've already decided what you're going to do as far as carrying the yarn up the side. I want to go ahead and show you kind of what that looks like. Let's see. Yeah, here we are. So in this one, I did carry the yarn up the side, and I really don't feel like it's not offensive, you know?
No, not at all.
You do see it. Get the light on it a little better. Yeah, you definitely can see it. Maybe this one's a little better. You can see that it's carried up.
You can see the contrast there a bit more, can't you?
Right. You don't see it on the right side. You notice it a little bit more on the wrong side. Right?
I think it looks great. I mean, you know, I'd see no reason why you would want to sew in all those extra ends when you could do that.
Right?
Because it would be a lot more ends.
Right. All right. So Wendy has a question about carrying up the side. So let me quick like a bunny get to my other end, and we can talk about that a little bit. So I'm getting to that. I typically recommend for most garments that are seamed that you begin a new ball of yarn at the beginning of a row. This one is not seamed, and it's a very fuzzy and textural, as you've said, yarn. What are your thoughts about joining yarn for this?
I think you could perfectly get away with joining in the middle of the row. I think the only thing obviously to think about is where your ends are, because we're doing garter stitch. So if you were joining in on a wrong side row, say that's where your ball run out and your yarn is at the back of your work, which is actually the front of the garment, you know, you want to make sure be easier to change on a right side row at any point where your yarn is in the back, and then your 2 tails would be at the back and ready to sew in, and you wouldn't have to think about it or anything. So but yeah, I think you wouldn't see it. There's no way you'd see it. It's so fuzzy and beautiful and textural, and yeah, I think you'd be perfectly fine to do that.
Yeah. So Jal made a comment. She's I'm going to carry mine. She's a great knitter, and she's carrying it up the side, but she's slipping that first stitch. So,
okay. Yeah.
Which is something you can do because it isn't seamed.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
That's a brilliant idea. That would make it really nice, Jal. Thank you for that tip. That's great. I'm almost there. So what is on your needles right now?
Me, you were talking to me, weren't you?
Yes, I was, darling.
Of course you are. Of course you are. I'm knitting another one of my little mini shawls, my 1500 mini shawls in Moordale.
Oh.
I started it while I was traveling because it's the perfect travel project. So it's got just a simple textured pattern, and it's a nice little project, and it was like 1 skein of Moordale. So I thought I can stick that in my suitcase, and if I need an emergency cast on, that's what I'm going to cast on. And sure enough, I did need an emergency cast on. So I was glad I had it.
I love that. Isn't Moordale the most beautiful yarn ever?
It really is. And you know what? It's not a yarn I've used an enormous amount, actually. So it was really nice to knit something in it. I see Denise said she bought the pure cashmere for it. Yes. Awesome. So this is my 3rd one. So I've done Alpaca Classic, No, I haven't. I've done Alpaca Soft DK, the pure cashmere, and now I've moved on to Moordau, and I'm thinking like, what else can I do? I might try and do a slightly summery version, but I'm not quite sure yet. Maybe Soft Jack.
Soft Jack would be nice, but cotton wool would be pretty too.
Yes, lovely. Yeah,
so
good.
soft.
Exactly. So the possibilities are endless, really, aren't they?
Yes, they absolutely are. Okay, so I am at the end of my row. I'm going to go ahead and pop this up. Okay, so here I'm at the end of the row, and you see that I have the gray yarn from down here where I was working, and it's time to work the gray yarn again. So I'm just going to bring it up and I'm going to start knitting with it. But let's pretend that I had another row of green to work before I was going to work the gray again. I would simply pull that gray yarn up and over the green yarn so that it would get caught right there. And when I knit, it would then be in place. It would be carried up the side and integral to the selvage fabric rather than having a strand that jumped from down here all the way to up here. So that's what it means to carry the yarn up this side. Yeah. Your other option would be, so at this point I'm finished with my my green for these 2 rows. I have a garter ridge of gray to work, so 2 rows of gray. I could cut this and weave it in, or I could carry it up. Well, not carry it up. It's just gonna be there, right?
Yeah.
So that's what it means to carry up the yarn along the side. I hope that makes sense to you and that it was clear enough. So please, who was it that asked? Was that Wendy? Please let me know if that makes good sense to you or if you'd like to see something else. And then Jal had the point of if you slip that first stitch, you know, then you have a nice smooth edge. And since it's garter stitch, you're going to slip it purlwise with yarn in front and the color change. You know, you do see a slight jog, but it's probably compensated for by the smoothness of that selvage. Yep. All right. So let's see, what else did I want to, this is a really quick knit along. It's a quick knit. If you work on this just a little bit every morning and every evening, you can certainly get the back done up to the sleeves by next week. And that's the goal. So next week, we're going to do the cast on for the sleeves. And we're going to talk about the shoulder shaping. Right?
That's really exciting.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah. And it is a great relaxing knit, you know, it's really rhythmic and you don't have to think too much. And that's my kind of knitting, to be honest.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So we've had a question about working that up and slipping the first stitch. So slipping your first stitch, let's see, let me get this on here. You're just going to slip it purlwise. So with your yarn in front, you would just slip that first stitch purlwise, insert your needle into it, and then bring your yarn here. And that puts the caught stitch kind of to the back, right? And the catch,
you catch it in first, don't you? The way you were doing it. Yeah.
Yes. And then you see how it's in the back, and it is a little tidier. I hadn't thought to do that. So that's absolutely brilliant, Jal. So it gives you, when you slip that first stitch purlwise with the yarn in front, it gives you a beautiful selvage. I don't typically recommend doing that when you are making a garment because it doesn't make as tidy a seam, but these side seams are not seamed. They're open.
Exactly.
So it would be perfect in there. Yeah, so you catch it and then slip it, and then when the yarn is, you'll see it when you do it. I promise it will make more sense when you have it on your needles. Right? Do you ever do that? Do you ever slip?
Sometimes I do. I actually went through a phase a long time ago of doing that quite a lot, especially on scarves and stuff like that. But I think, I don't know, sometimes now it depends how, if your garter stitch is really neat, then, you know, it's all right. But I sometimes find if you are a bit wobbly, you know, it does get a wobbly edge, it really, really helps. But I've tried really hard to try and make my garter stitch super nice and even. So I tend not to do it so much now, but it's such a personal preference thing, isn't it? You know, it
Yeah.
really is.
If you're seaming that edge, though, I think it's essential that you work every stitch.
I'm with you there. I think it weakens the seam, and it's just not as, because you've got half as many stitches in there, and it, you know, yeah, you're right. It really doesn't give for the neatest finish.
Right. And if you're picking up stitches, unless
Yes,
it's,
that's
you
true.
know, if you need to pick up more than one stitch for every garter
Right.
rig.
Then you've really made it hard for yourself, haven't
Yeah.
you? Yeah.
It's not such a problem with garter stitch as it is with stockinette. A lot of people will slip that first stitch.
Yeah, I think it's become a thing that a lot of people do all the time, and
Yeah.
an unconscious thing as well. Almost, if I remember when I worked in the yarn store, and I'd say to people, like, "Why did you do that?" And they're just like, I don't know really. It's just a thing I do on everything."
I think part of it is that so many folks start knitting a scarf,
Yeah,
and they've learned that gives a smooth edge.
yeah,
And then when they graduate to sweaters, they're not thinking about how that slipped selvage affects the seaming.
no,
It's just
that's so
something that
true.
they understand to be the right thing to do with
Yeah,
fabric.
yeah, that's so interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just wanted to remind everybody that our next meeting is next week. I actually will be in Seattle, so I'm hoping I can find some place to stream from
Exciting.
my daughter's house or the hotel or someplace. So I won't be at the shop, but I will definitely be here, and we will be casting on for the sleeves. And like I said, we'll be talking about the shoulders. It looks like Polly may have a question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Try both. Good.
And then see how you like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. So, all right. Well, there's a good idea. She says she's also changing the color in that last stitch, catching the carried yarn as well, like catching a float, and then moving the stitch. All right. Well, that's complicated. Maybe next time, Jal, I'll bring you on and you can show everybody how you are doing that. That would be super fun. I mean, there are a lot of ways that you could change this to make it easier to seam or whatever. I mean, if you are casting on for the sleeves, you could conceivably do a provisional cast on for the sleeves and then do a 3-needle bind off when you went to join them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And you could do the same thing at the shoulders. Rather than doing the bind off at the shoulders, you could work the shoulders with short rows and then do a 3-needle bind off.
Yeah. And that's a really interesting thing, actually, because we were talking about this, weren't we? Saying it makes it easier to seam, so maybe it will make it easier. And I think, I don't know, maybe this is a slightly British American thing, because this garment is like a 1-star difficulty level, right, for Rowan. And so we try and come up with garments that are simple. And so I guess seaming just isn't considered such a to put the difficulty rating up, but something like short row shaping would put it up. And that's so interesting, because I think actually maybe it's more common, because maybe there's more garments knitted in the round and stuff like that, that short rows are more common. So that's just a really interesting and a totally great way to approach it. If you know how to do short rows, or you'd like to try short rows, then that is a great option to do that, and then do your 3-needle bind off. Yeah.
Well, you know, I am all about the seamed garments.
Me too. I do love a seam. I do love a seam.
I think a nice shoulder seam gives you great structure. The entire weight of the garment is born on that shoulder seam.
Yeah.
But I also recognize that many, many people are really seam averse.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? And I think maybe that's because it's just if you've not been shown how to do it, or you've tried to learn from books or something like that, if you've never seen it in action, then yeah, it is, where do I put my needle in? Where exactly, what am I looking for to pick up? And that can be really difficult. But I think once you kind of master the art of making up and seaming and finishing and all of that kind of thing, like classes in that sort of thing are like gold dust. They're great. I definitely recommend that everyone did one at some point, because you just learn so many great little tips and things, don't you?
Yes, absolutely. I have one. I do. It's called
There we
Flawless Finishing. Yeah, I mean, and it's very popular.
Yeah.
So the thing about this particular garment in terms of seaming it is challenging to see the stitches because the yarn is so fuzzy. But the good news is the yarn is fuzzy.
I like that.
Right?
That's true. Yeah.
It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect at all.
No,
So,
because you really won't notice so much. It's very forgiving, is how I like to think about it.
100%,
Yeah.
100% forgiving. So, so were there any other questions real quick before we go? I just wanted to remind everybody of the homework, work the back, whether you're carrying up. I mean, this is a knit along, and obviously you're free to do it at your leisure. And this will be on YouTube for forever, so you can go back and refer to it anytime you like. But it is sort of nice to have this knit along with a little bit of accountability.
Oh, and it's really fun, isn't it? Because you'll come across things or you'll get spurred on by other people's progress, which is really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, you maybe see somebody do it in a color that you like. You think, oh, I love that so much. I'm going to do another one.
Yeah.
I have a customer who bought 2 kits at Vogue Knitting Live.
No way.
Yeah, and she's already finished one.
Oh, no way. And now she's going to do another one.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's really
a testament. I think that's a huge compliment to you, Georgia.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's wonderful, honestly.
So you have some fun things in the new season. We can switch gears a little bit.
Yeah.
What is your favorite garment from this spring summer Rowan season that
I designed, or someone else?
Well, my favorites are the ones you designed, of course.
My favorite design would be, I think it's called Cello, and it's in the Mode collection. It's like a t-shirt shape in cotton cashmere, and it's got like a little textured knit purl pattern. It's just like a grid, like a squares, and I've got to make that. That's top of my list to make. I try and make at least one of my designs per season, because I don't get to keep all the samples, so they get sent to wonderful shops like yours, Ellen. So I definitely want to make one, and I think that's the one that's winning for me at the moment.
So when you design, you don't knit the thing up. You give a swatch and a sketch and a color palette.
Yeah, it does depend. Sometimes when I do magazine work, I'll knit the samples, and when I self-publish, I knit the samples. But we do so many designs with Rowan that it would just be impossible. We would never hit our deadlines. So we have a team of knitters. And it's really great as well, because it helps keep everything sort of standardized. If I did things one way in different design, there's a Rowan way. There's a Rowan way.
There's the Rowan way and there's the wrong way.
So we design them, and then we let them be made the Rowan way. And I think that is really helpful, because it enables us to do so much more. I wouldn't be able to design as widely as I do if I didn't have the support like that. So
that's what we all need, is a team of knitters.
Right? And obviously, I don't know these team of knitters, but I'd love to meet them because they sound great.
I love that. I think that's just like every knitter's dream come true.
Right,
Alexa, weave in my ends.
Yeah, they actually have in the office. They actually have some women who finish garments, and they do for all. So often they might send them out to knitters and have them come back in pieces. And these women are like impeccable at finishing. It's incredible. So that's really cool. I've met them in the office, and that was really fun.
You know, I'm big on the finishing. Everybody knows that that is my jam.
Is
And I
it?
always say that good finishing is the difference between, wow, that's a beautiful sweater, and, oh, I see you've taken up knitting. You made that yourself, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's so true.
All right. So, real quick, I think,
Ooh,
yeah, Glenn would like to know what everybody's doing. So
fun.
I'm
Yeah.
doing this one. I am doing the tornado, and it's the darker of the gray, tornado and
Oh,
storm.
that's really fun because that's the two colors that I used to make orchid from the collection.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I did the
So
main,
really
the
nicely.
green, and then the like lilac-y gray as the accent color. Yeah.
Yeah, very pretty. Um, this is not the blue gray that you used in the original agave. This is the kind of the drabber
Oh, I
gray.
see. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, Tammy's got, yes, I helped Tammy get these. She picked these out. They are beautiful. She's using that turquoise
Oh, wow.
and the palest. It is stunning.
That sounds amazing. Can't wait to see that. Tornado and Midnight. Oh, beautiful.
Nice.
Contrast. Really beautiful. Oh, oh my gosh. So there's actually quite a lot of variety going on. This is going to be really fun to see how they all turn out.
Yeah,
You
I
have
think
to
it's going
find
to
a
be
way on
fun.
the last one that we can see everyone's design, like everyone's garments. That would be really fun.
Yeah, maybe everybody could sort of send me a picture, or we can,
That'd be so
you know,
cool.
people who want to be on,
Mhm.
I can bring them on, you
Yeah,
know, just like you're on. That would
I'd
be
love
really
to see. Yeah, I'd love to see how the colors work up and everything.
Yeah. Okay, so everybody has to get busy. If you want to be, let's see what Jal's got. Olive and
Ooh,
gray. Yep, just like
nice.
mine, I think. Yep.
Yeah,
Jal,
lovely.
super
Classic.
fun.
That olive green in that color palette is really such a good color.
So pretty.
Yeah.
So pretty.
I think that's probably my favorite color of all of them there.
It's a Facebook page. Maybe, or you could just be on. Let me know if you wouldn't mind being on. It would be super fun. I think I can have up to 10 people
Oh,
on.
wow. Oh, that's
Yeah,
great.
and you know, people could sort of go in and out as they wanted, I think.
Yeah.
But it is nice to see,
Oh,
you
it's
know.
so nice. Yeah, because I design things or you sell yarn in shops, and sometimes, not always, do people come back and say, "Look what I made," and show you, right? And
Right.
it's so nice when you get to see it, honestly.
It is. So we do, as you know, we do a retreat twice a year, and the
Yes.
most popular part of that, even though we have like great speakers and we do a lot of food, is this show and share brunch that we
Oh,
do,
wow.
right?
That's
Because
really
everybody brings what they've knitted since the last time.
love that.
You never are going to find a more appreciative audience for your knitwear
Oh,
than,
that is so true than a room full of knitters.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And also, I always say, you know, nowhere else can you go up and like touch something, somebody's person, you know, without even asking.
Yeah. But we all understand. It's
Right,
about
exactly.
the
Ooh,
knitting.
what is that? Yeah, it's good. All right. So, same time next week. It's Saturday at noon. If you are Eastern Daylight Time, if you are someplace else, then you'll have to use that little software that Georgia does to ask what time it
Just
is.
Google it.
Okay, Google it.
That's
Georgia,
fine.
you are such a delight. Thank you so
Oh,
much for
it's
being
my
here.
pleasure. Thank you for
Yeah.
inviting me and organising the knit along and everything. It's
No.
wonderful. So thank you, Ellen, and thank you to
Good.
everybody who's taken part. I really
Yeah.
hope you enjoy it.
We're gonna love it. And Georgia will not be on for the next 2 times, but she will be on our final
Yes,
showcase.
I'm going to
So
come back and see how you get on.
that sounds great. All right, and everybody, if you have questions, you know where to reach me. Put them in the comments. I respond to every single comment on YouTube, and I'll see you next time. All right, thank you
Take
guys.
care. Bye.